You're listening to the Renegade Blitz, the best podcast for Steelers fans by Steelers fans. Follow us on Twitter at Renegade Blitz, at RBlitzPod, and at Blitz Videos. Read articles on RenegadeBlitz.com, like us on Facebook, and subscribe to our podcast on your favorite podcast app.
And welcome back to the Renegade Blitz podcast. I'm Ty Polk with Chris Ward and the new Pittsburgh Courier's Brandon Walker. We had the Jets podcast lined up for a Saturday night interview, but unfortunately, due to our guest for the podcast, he was unable to. He had some issues come up, so of course, last week there was no Jets preview podcast. We do apologize for that. These things happen, and I wasn't even going to be on the podcast anyway because I went into time constraints for myself with other obligations, but we're glad to be back with you to recap the Steelers versus the Jets. And of course, we're going to start with Brandon's leadoff. We're going to do this every podcast because, well, he's in the stadium, so we might as well get the thoughts of the credentialed reporter here as we get some more legitimacy on this podcast. So, Brandon, I want to talk about what you said in the group chat. You kind of floated out the idea that this was a Tomlin Special game, so I want you to explain your thoughts of why you think that is, and ultimately, is it a Tomlin Special?
It is not a Tomlin Special. Do you know why? Can we say suck?
What?
Can we? This team stinks.
Yeah.
This team is horrible. This is a horrible roster. So it's going to be any Tomlin Special. It's going to be the reverse Tomlin Special. Like a Tomlin Special if they go up next week and beat Buffalo. That would be a Tomlin Special because
In the reverse?
yes. That is a they can't run the ball. They can it's coaching. They gave up on the run. They should have just started Pickett at the beginning. If you knew you was going to pull him, you thought about pulling him, just pull him. Like, the Jets were the better team. They can't close out games. They couldn't close out on the quarterback. They couldn't do anything right. Claypool is overrated. He's plays like he's 5'11" when he's 6'5". He is he ain't it. I thought we should have traded him while we had the opportunity.
Someone actually brought that up on Twitter today. Think about the Giants, because like, there's talk about Odell Beckham going to the Giants or whatnot. But yeah, I don't know, Claypool. That we'll get to that play. That's been a big controversial play. But as first, answer the question about the Tomlin Special. Yeah, I don't think it is either. Just because I do think it was debatable because Tomlin completely mismanaged that whole quarterback situation. Like Pickett should have started that game. He should have got reps heading into this past week. Trubisky just like he didn't show anything the first 3 weeks. So like why was anything going to change? But yeah, the Steelers are just not a good team right now, and they're staring at 1-7. That's a brutal 4-game stretch that's coming up.
Yeah, this wasn't a Tomlin Special at all for this team. Again, for the reasons you guys put out there. I mean, Mitch Trubisky showed that he could throw it deep, but it didn't work out for him, and that was really just the entire encapsulation of Mitch Trubisky as a Steelers quarterback. It just wasn't going to work out for him, especially with the way that there was too much hype. There was too much hype with Kenny Pickett here. Any quarterback that came into the situation was doomed for failure. It'd much rather have been Mason Rudolph, who was easily the whipping boy for everyone in this town for reasons that both you could go down to gameplay and also out of gameplay situations, and I will not mention much more. I think you understood that.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
Go ahead. Yeah, we saw the alumni weekend. We saw it. His sidebar. He showed up at 11 something. Hey, I'm like, we had a joke. Me and Ray was like, oh, he was like, he's late. He was late. Mason Rudolph for the game.
Was he?
Yeah, he was like he showed up like late, like 11 something, like 11.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he showed up late.
That's funny. That's a good. I mean, he was inactive anyway, but that's a good tidbit there, I guess, of news about Mason Rudolph. I mean, he is getting a rough deal just because like he could be like a backup on another team and whatnot. But the quarterback says Tomlin's trying to play it safe, like they don't want another Duck Hodges type of situation. But also like we'll get into this more deeper. But the defense, like you mentioned, Brandon, they can't finish games, and fourth quarter defense has been like brutal, absolutely brutal this year. Just
all 4 games.
They all 4 games.
In Cincinnati, they got lucky in Cincinnati. Patriots was just a train wreck. The Browns was a train wreck, and then yesterday blew a 10-point lead. How do you blow a 10-point lead? Like Michael Petaway Tomlin.
It made Zach Wilson look like he was Joe Namath.
Yes, Michael Petaway Tomlin, my brother in Christ. You need to fire the coordinator, and you just have to fire him. You need to fire your special teams coach because he hasn't been doing much for years. I think Boswell bails him out every single time. Like the special teams deserves an F. 4 punts for 39 yards each, and then Boswell kicked the ball out of bounds.
Yeah, and Gunner's been a big disappointment also. He had a fumble. Luckily, they recovered it and stuff.
I think they're waiting for Austin to come in.
That's a good.
I think that really, it really feels like Gunnar Olszewski is literally just a placeholder until Austin gets healthy enough to play at this point. Because, I mean, when you look at it, yeah, you guys talk about special teams and Chris, me and you hyped up Presley Harvin for one thing. It seemed that he could be a kicker, a punter in outdoor situations, and my goodness, he can't do anything in this town. I think it's just because Acrisure Heinz Field is just a hard place to punt. Yeah. There's really only been 3 or so punters that I could say did okay here and there. One of them was too injured to continue on in his career. And then you have Chris Gardocki and Josh Miller.
Oh, you talking about Sepulveda.
Yeah, Sepulveda was too hurt. He actually was a good punter when he was healthy. The problem was he wasn't healthy. So they had to trot out Mitch Berger, who didn't punt really much during the greatest show on turf days. So this is a team that just, for some reason, I always say that if you can punt better outside of Heinz Field, Acrisure Stadium, then you can punt in it. Then it's clearly the stadium, and they needed to find a punter that can do something here.
In the stadium, yeah, you can't. It's a certain stadium, that certain wind, a certain blow that it has, especially on the north side of the end zone, which is the key to being able to be a successful punter here.
And it's not even how it used to be. There's no 2 open ends away from the scoreboard side. They closed up the top half of that with the Bud Light Club. So what do you want to do? Do you want to close up the other side too? But then that eliminates the entire advantage. I mean, wind will still get into that stadium at all means, at any cost. But still, what's going on?
I think I did read that he was dealing with a hip injury or something. But
he's hurt.
If he was hurt, like why play him?
Are you playing? Like if you go,
they brought back the punting Aussie.
Yeah, Jordan Berry's on the practice squad. So I mean, why don't play him if he's not fully healthy? Like obviously it did hurt the team field position in a close game and stuff like that. But Brandon, I was real quick. I know I saw on Facebook you posted that you met Joe Green. I'm interested to know like how'd that all go? As a Steelers legend and everything.
It was great. Dude, his handshake, he shook my hand. It was like, can you play defensive line right now for the Steelers? Because can you give us like 5 downs at the end of the game? He'd be better off than whoever they like Olenjobi and Adams.
Yeah, they definitely could use him. But what'd you say to him, or did you interview him, or you just said, "Hey"?
No, I just said, no. I'm gonna tell you this. I just said, look, you are the best player I never got to see play.
Yeah, I know. What did he say?
He just chuckled and laughed.
Did you tell him that you were from the Courier and Bill Dunn and everything?
I didn't even think, but don't worry. It was alumni weekend. It was Cordell Stewart was there, Jason Gilden, LaVon Kirkland, Dwayne Woodruff, a couple of other older Steelers that I don't know
Yeah,
who played for the 70s.
What about Shazier? You interviewed him too. What was that like?
I didn't interview Shazier. I recorded the interview, but I just had a little chop up. We talked about Ohio State, Penn State, like big football, how they feel. It was just not big, but just talk to him a little bit about it. Cool dude. But let's get back to brass taxes.
Yeah, I just had to ask about Joe Green because
I wanted to save it towards the end to have like a happier ending here, but you just couldn't help yourself.
I couldn't wait to the end.
But let's talk about, I guess the big story. Kenny Pickett. He actually came into this game in the second half, and honestly, for a guy that was playing his first football for a month, he did really well, in my opinion. I felt that you could feel the winds of change. You could feel the energy, and I think that really buoyed this team to not completely blowing apart in the third quarter, and at least saving that for the fourth. But that's another story. I mean, I look at it and go, for a guy that was put in a situation where there was really no losing for him, I felt he looked the part of an NFL quarterback.
Yeah, he did. He had his head down, a head on the screen, like he looked both reads, third read. He did that. But there's some plays that, ball placement, especially on the interceptions, that he shouldn't have did. Like Penn State, Pat, I love you. But you got to catch the ball or at least drop it.
It was a little high, though.
Real high.
But Pickett, that was a classic rookie mistake. Like, he should have just, threw it away. And what happened on that toss play? Like, he just, you rarely ever see that's fundamental football. I guess
I don't know what he was thinking. And then that play that led to that, down and distance situation. He was at the 31-yard line. Well, get this clock down. And see, clock, even though, but Tomlin ain't really great at managing the clock anyway. Never really been 16 years. But it was just a bad situation. Like, you guys just have ball placement situation. He'll learn from that. And then as far as Claypool, they need to just send him he's soft. He's Canadian dry soft. He wants to dance and do all the little things.
He needs to go play some hockey or something like that.
You know what he does? You know what his stats were on Sunday?
Yeah.
He ain't had no stats. You know why? Because I ain't see it. What? How many? Hold on.
Yeah, it's 0 on both receptions, no yards, obviously. But
you see,
he had that. I'm going to say this right now. It got jarred away by the Jets defensive back. He wasn't really even looking at the ball. He was basically Edward Scissorhandsing, just basically, let me throw an arm out here and just say that I tried something. And he managed to dislodge it from his hands. And the rule is, anytime it touches the receiver or tight end's hands, even though I think, again, with Freiermuth, I still feel like that was supposed to go out of bounds with no issue. But when it touches your hands like that and people were saying he underthrew it, no. It was the same for every receiver for the Steelers. He said, you're the pros, you go make the play. That's what Kenny Pickett was saying. That's a 6'4" wide receiver in a jump ball situation. You got to make that play. He did not make that play, and fortunately, it really didn't affect them in the long run until later with it. But man,
that was
not make that play.
That was like a heated debate on Twitter. Like, Pickett, did he underthrow it, or Claypool?
Who cares? He had his hand on the ball.
Yeah, and he, like you said, before that's been a common issue with Claypool. He can't win 50-50 balls. Like, he missed times jumps, or he's fallen down or something. He's just been inconsistent.
Even on the Hail Mary, he had a shot at the ball.
He ain't do it. He'll come up with the ball. He's
honestly, one thing about that Hail Mary that made me go back and change my thoughts about Pickett's throw to Claypool for that interception, because what Pickett was on like the 45, and he put that towards the back part of the end zone. Yeah. So I was like, all right, it's not arm strength. That was just, I'm just trying to throw it up to you. It might have got affected by wind or something like that at the very least. But I sat there, I'm like, all right, he gave you a shot.
Yeah.
And maybe if it's just a high floater ball where you basically put it up high in the air and have it drop down like a missile, maybe there's a play made there. But regardless, he put the ball in situations where it could be a catch. And ultimately, it was up to guys. So for going 10 for 13, all three of the incompletions were interceptions. So I'd view it as he did what he could in those situations. It just didn't happen.
It definitely didn't happen. But let's get to the coaching. Let's go back to Mr. Michael Pettaway Tomlin. I'm starting to think he's a little bit overrated.
Oh wow! I didn't come on here expecting that.
Okay, look here. Come on, man. All these playing down the competition, even though this team ain't that good. But his ego, he's acting like he is the man now. It's just now he ain't got Colbert to be up above him. He got his boy Omar Khan, cool dude, but he ain't got Ben to placate to. It used to be Tomlin, but now it's Tomlin's team, and look what's happening right now. It ain't going so good. Was Tomlin a product of Ben Roethlisberger's success and all the high end talent? First with AB and Le'Veon and stuff like that. Then before that, you had the high end talent on defense with Palomalu, James Harrison, and Dick LeBeau, all these guys.
Yeah.
He ain't never had to worry about all that. He had the team leadership. He had everything. This is his team. This is his baby. This is a Tomlin team. And then now the standards are slipping. Like I said before, he's starting to get a little bit overrated. Put down in these competitions.
I'll put it to you like this. That 2019 team, and again, we always harken back to that because that was basically his best coaching job. I think he played himself with the quarterback situation. So again, I'll harken on this later, but these next 4 weeks for him are going to prove not only the Steelers' mettle, but his mettle too, because he's going to have to coach them through this game. He's going to have to put his 2019 pants on and get to work and coach this team through this situation. Because the difference between this team and that team is that the high-end talent on that team was younger and able to make plays. He's dealing with an older, more hurt team. Yeah. He's going, and while maybe the offense is better than whatever it was for 2019, in terms of it has more mental lapses than that 2019 team. That team couldn't afford to make the mistakes it did, and that team made mistakes yesterday.
I'll say this about Tomlin: I've always been a fan of him. I think he's a great motivator, defensive minded coach and everything. And but the one thing is that I think he hasn't made a lot of good hires lately. Like offensively, Terrell Austin's still early, but especially offensive coordinator, offensive line coaches, they've been running through them they're there a year or two and then they're gone. So I think the Steelers are behind offensively, like schematically, compared to the rest of the league and everything. But I mean, Brandon, you made a lot of good points. I've heard people say that for years that you guys all know the coward players talk, but he did have like a Hall of Fame. He went as a Hall of Fame player, but Dick LeBeau was a legendary coach. He had Bruce Arians as an offensive coordinator. Todd Haley's, you say what you want about Todd Haley, but he was a pretty good offensive coordinator.
Yeah.
So he's had a lot of good support system, veteran team, and Ben's going to go to the Hall of Fame. But I don't want to say like Tomlin leached off them or anything, because he still was the leader of that team, and like I said, every player that played, pretty much every player just says like how great of a coach and motivator he is. But we'll have to see if he can pull a 2019 type of season with these next 4 games.
Oh man,
can I say something about that?
And also, furthermore, I think we've seen the best of Mr. Cameron Hayward.
That's another point that a lot of people have been talking about.
I think we have, man. I told you, I thought I was going to see a little bit of it last year, but this year it's just like he's still great. But
do you think age has caught up to him, or do you think he's
big time?
I think it doesn't help that they're also putting a bit more attack into him with Watt being out. But the guy that's benefited from that is Alex Highsmith, because Highsmith has shown us something over the past few weeks. So there's always a catch-22 with this entire situation when it comes to the Steelers' defense. I mean, when you take a look at it, you look at the entire defensive line. To it again, he was Dr. Jekyll, Dr. Hyde in a lot of situations where he would have big games and then he would go away for a game or so. He still was one of the younger defensive linemen on this team, and they were hoping to have him there as the guy that led the transition away from Cam Hayward. And of course, with the defensive line, they got some guys, but that's the problem. They're just a guy when you look at it. With Adams, Wormley, Ogunjobi, and they have new set pieces out there. I mean, they could put in Isaiah Loudermilk, who's 6'7", and can probably at the very least, take up some space. That would be nice.
Yeah. But I saw with Hayward, a lot of people on Twitter were saying all season he was talking about Aaron Donald and how he's in the same class, as Donald's. But Hayward, Brandon Shakes, Hayward's a great player, but I don't know if he's playing injured or like you mentioned, Ty, about getting more attention with TJ Watt out, or if Father Time's just caught up.
I mean, 12 years as a defensive tackle in the National Football League is not easy. He ain't missed that many games durable, well, except for the 2016 season. But when I think he tore his pec or something like that. But he's great. But I think he's just declining just a little bit, and this team can't have a compromised declining Cam Hayward on the team.
But I'm trying to think, because the defense has been underperforming, and Minka's been great, but other than Minka, I guess you could say Highsmith too. He could have had 2 more sacks yesterday. The Steelers, they got a ton of pressure on Zach Wilson, but he somehow escaped and made a lot of plays. Like if Flacco was in that game, the Steelers could have had 6 sacks probably.
Right, but man, that dude is elusive. Like he got out of there, they couldn't get home. They could not get home and get to that court. I'm like, there's 4 or 5. It happened 4 or 5 times.
Yeah,
he just went.
I think that was a tip your cap situation with him. I mean, that's what Zach Wilson has always been known for, that elusive ability as a quarterback. He's not going to power through like Pickett on the goal line with sneaks or Ben Roethlisberger in his prime. He's always been known as that elusive quarterback that's just hard to find out there, and that's a lot of the league these days. But one thing I also wanted to mention beforehand while you guys were talking about offense is the offensive line. I know that everyone was getting upset with the penalties on the offensive line, but let's take a look at those. A lot of those were ineligible men downfield penalties. And did you notice that the Steelers immediately, once Pickett went in there, this was the first time ever that the Steelers legitimately went, we got to run RPOs. And I want people to know that that's the symptom whenever you run these plays. The Steelers have never had the option to run it because, one, when Ben Roethlisberger was younger and also in his prime, that wasn't a pro concept. It was still a college thing. Right. Now that's going to be something that people are going to see continuously out of the Steelers because that's what every young quarterback does. They run RPOs. It's a safe concept for a learning quarterback.
Yeah, of course. That will do. And that jet sweep, they did not, I don't think they ran at one time.
Because that's the play they have to run now. That RPO stuff is what they're gonna have to do. You might see like maybe when Austin comes in, you might see like an RPO orbit in terms of it where he'll come all the way around for the play. It's kind of like the jet sweep, but it's not. But yeah. I think you're seeing a lot of new concepts with the Steelers that makes me go, all right, Matt Canada, here's your guy. Here's the guy that's expected to run your offense, and hopefully it works out for you because at this moment, he's got a ton of pressure on him, but there's enough change that I've seen once Pickett got into this game that makes me go, all right, it's totally new concepts that have never been seen before for a Steelers offense. And if they were seen in terms of these running quarterback concepts, you have to go back to, coincidentally, Cordell Stewart. So I look at this team and I go, for the next 4 weeks, you're going to see a different offense from the Steelers that makes me hopeful that they, at the very least, can become, once again, a ball control team. Because, again, with the running backs there, this is going to help the running backs out. This is going to help the lanes in the passing area out. So could there be good times coming for the Steelers offense? I'm not sure, but I like it.
Right.
I like the possibility.
But you still have that offensive line, which is, I don't know. They're trying to be a powered offensive line, but they need to just switch to zone blocking.
Well, that's what an RPO effectively is going to force them. They're no longer trying to sit in that intermediary
with the run blocking, but you still got to pass protect. But I think you got Pickett with the mobility. I think the offense is going to be better, but the talent isn't. They don't know how to get there to get together. You know what I mean? They got to figure out how to work. It can work, but they have to figure out how to work. And they might not get that there in time with these next 4 games. 4 games ain't going to do it. It's going to probably be towards the end of the year when they can probably do it, when the schedule eases up, gets a little colder, and you could probably, add your wrinkles to it.
With the offensive line, so many penalties like pre-snap or holding. I don't know what the total was, but I know the Mason Cole was the only offensive lineman to not be penalized. But they some of it was on Trubisky too, because there was lanes where he could have stepped up and ran, or he just held on to the ball too long. But that's the thing with Pickett. I really like his mobility, and he just looks like he's like a gunslinger out there, opposed to Trubisky, who seemed like he was timid and was afraid to make a mistake all the time.
Steelers had 8 penalties for 55 yards.
Yep.
I have the stats here.
Yeah. It seemed like it was more, but it was all like self-inflicted or just like offensive line penalties.
All right, so let's move on to the future. Of course, it's a big 4-week stretch for the Steelers. They have Buffalo, Miami, Tampa Bay, and Philadelphia coming up. So, what are your expectations for this team offensively and defensively before I move on to saying who's the one that they could most likely steal the victory from?
I'll say what you want.
I want your expectations offensively and defensively first.
Expectations offensively is to be more efficient. Use Pickett for the RPOs, zone blocking. Make sure you get physicality at the point of attack in the running game. And get Pickens the ball. Get Freiermuth the ball. Those are your two best receivers right now.
Yeah.
Like, Claypool can go up the road. Deontay Johnson, I don't know why they gave him that contract. He's still overpaid for what he's done in the for right now. They gave him that contract for what? I would just have him like play out his contract and have him up the road too. Defensively, because we don't know when Watt's going to be back. Because he's not going to play this week. He's probably not going to play next week.
Maybe the Dolphins game,
Maybe the Dolphins game, and maybe Philadelphia. I just expect without Watt, they just have to go back to Blitzburg. Just try to blitz. Stop trying just bring in Jack, bring in Devin Bush, bring in whoever. Like, get Edmonds out there. Fitzpatrick could go out there. Get just get blitzes out there. And then you just got to finish games. Be smarter. Brian Flores, what are you doing?
Yeah.
What are you doing? Because he out there. He's like, he ain't making no impact right now. I mean, the linebackers are playing a little bit better, than last year. But come on, man, it couldn't. That's a low bar.
Yeah. As far as
the record, it depends. If you got Tua plays and he's up to snuff, I say they lose. They go 1-4. But if they got Bridgewater playing quarterback, that's still at home, on the road.
Sunday night football.
You could probably steal that one.
Yeah.
As far as what expectations, I think they need to, like you meant Pickens, they got to get him involved. Like his targets and receptions have been increasing every week. Continue to work the middle of the field. I really like Kenny Pickett and Pat Freiermuth, their chemistry together. I think that Pickett, I think, is going to change the offense. Like, it might not be like, it's not going to be like the greatest show on turf. I'm not saying that they're going to turn into that, but I think they're going to be a lot more, aggressive down the field. And, hopefully Najee, Najee Harris, what do you guys think about his performance? So, like, he's another guy that I think that, like, maybe that foot injury is holding him back. I know the offensive line is not great by no measure, but what are your thoughts on Harris?
He needs to start hitting the holes.
Yeah.
Hit the holes.
Third running back.
Yeah, and then you could get, and but also furthermore, you could get Jaylen Warren involved. Give him more than 3 carries. Get him involved in the passing game.
Yeah, it seemed like they were trying to get the ball outside. They got on tosses and stuff. Like, they must have seen like something on film that they thought that would work. But and then other times there wasn't holes for Harris. It's kind of been like a combination. Like, sometimes he's not seeing it, and then on other times the offense line is getting blown up. But I would like to see more out of Deontay Johnson too. Like, like you mentioned, Brandon, he got that big contract, and like, I think he only had 2 receptions for 11 yards. And Claypool, I'm kind of like, he was a 2nd-round pick, and there was issues when he was coming. He had a great rookie season, but ever since that rookie season, basically one great game. the 4
Like,
touchdowns.
come on, bro. Like, he had that 4 touchdown game.
Yeah, and
Like, come on. And that juices up his stats, and he thinks he's like doing it. Man, I'm tired of him. Like, now he's like my new whipping boy too. They and then I don't like him. I just don't like him. He has dirty dreads. He's just like he irks me.
Yeah, and then on defense, they need more out of Malik Reed, who's been filling in for T.J. Watt, and the defensive line needs to play better. Hayward, Ogunjobi, and Allen. So those guys need to play better. And I think the secondary was banged up too because they didn't have Witherspoon. Like everybody was injured in the set. Like Terrell Edmonds got concussed. Millette was dealing with like a hamstring, I think. Sutton was playing injured too, but they need to play. So everybody's got to pick their game up on defense. And like you mentioned, Brandon, like maybe the schematics, Tomlin, the trio of Tomlin, Terrell Alston, and Brian Flores need to get it together because that fourth quarter was brutal. I don't know what happened there. That was just like a complete blunder.
Oh, what they're doing, man.
In terms of this, for me, offensively, become an NFL offense, please. All right, now run concepts that allow you to attack the middle. You have a tight end that can go out there and do something. It's not Eric Ebron. It's not Vance McDonald. It's a guy that when he gets the ball, he'll go do something. You have a wide receiver in Pickens, who is him, 6 receptions for 102 yards between 2 quarterbacks. Not a lot of receivers are going to go out there and do that. So you need to take advantage of that. Deontay Johnson, become an NFL receiver with NFL hands. Please. Chase Claypool, do something. Anything. Even if it's an end around, do something.
No, he don't be doing end arounds. I'm tired of seeing that crap.
Remember
I'm at this point. I'd like to see him be an NFL wide receiver. So in short, for the offense, be NFLers, please, in both play calling and going out there and doing your job. Because your quarterback at least showed that he has the capability to do that. Now you can be something so you can help out this defense and stay off the field. Because especially against Buffalo, that's what they need to do. That's going to help that team more than anything right now.
Yeah, because you have to stay with Buffalo. You have to beat them both,
stay on the field,
or they're going to dog walk you. They don't.
You got to stay on the field. You got to score on your first drive. It's got to be something. It's got to be a field goal at the very least. I'll start small. I'll be happy on their first drive with a field goal, but I really want it to be a touchdown. Now defensively for them, look. You're going up against teams that have high-flying attacks out there, and it's generally based on your offense becoming an NFL offense. But I need this. No matter what, you got to get home. You got to get home on it. You got to make these quarterbacks realize the pressure is coming because this defense has shown that it can make plays when the ball's thrown at them. Fitzpatrick, when a quarterback makes a mistake, he's going to pick that ball off. This team at least has enough ability that if a quarterback is forced into a mistake, they're going to make you pay. And that's what you want. You have to create extra possessions for this offense right now that has to, again, show that it's an NFL offense. And also, I'm going to add in this with special teams. You got to block something. It's got to be all 3 phases now. If it hasn't been that way before, it's really got to be apparent now.
No more fumbling punts either.
Yes.
No more muffing punts, and you got to get this punting game going. The punter Harvey, get healthy and get right.
Yeah.
Put
in Jordan Berry and basically just wait until Harvin gets healthy, and then he has one last shot before you let go of him because he's a 7th-round punter at the end of the day. In terms of that's really it. Just please play to your strengths. See what your team can do well in these practices, and not do anything that's just too rash. for the love of God, just play like an NFL team, please. That's all you want to see. And I think that, as you guys have said, the best possible victory for them is Miami at this point.
Yeah.
Do I think that they can play spoiler against Philadelphia? Yes, because that's a game that I expect this team to get up for, especially if it's undefeated. They're still undefeated at the time.
Yeah, that's a good point.
When's the last time Chris, give me a question. Who's the president the last time the Steelers won in Philadelphia?
The president, it was in the 60s. So I believe it was 65. So I don't even know. I don't know who it was. Do you know? Who's after John
Considering that
Lyndon B. Johnson. Okay.
Lyndon B. Johnson.
Yeah.
How do you not give an opportunity for the guy that's named after two presidents?
Yeah.
How do you not even give me an opportunity? I love this, man. I love this presidential trivia stuff. And you didn't even let me at least try to deduct it, man.
Did you know the answer?
Yeah. Cuz I could literally figure it out. I could process this stuff. When your name is Tyler Polk and your middle name is James, you got to know this stuff, man. I got Lanny Forterre and so many other people on my back about this.
Yeah.
Come on, man. You got to let me flex.
I think, depending on if Tua plays, I think actually Tampa Bay might be the Steelers' best chance at home to pull off an upset. Because
I never trust a team with Tom Brady to let the Steelers off lightly.
That's true, but I like their chances again. I don't think they're going to win in Buffalo or Philadelphia. I think those two games, I think they have no chance. Miami's pretty good too when they have Tua though, so I don't know.
Yeah, but man, if I was Tua, I'd sit out the rest of the season. And then man, that dude was doing gang signs and all that stuff, literally. He was
Tom Brady, I know, but they haven't really been all that impressive this year, either.
You know what? That's when they're most dangerous. When Tom Brady has the back up against the wall.
And it's their only home game too during the 4-game stretch. But I guess that doesn't. They're already 0-2 at home anyway.
No, man, it's like Tom Brady. We need to get up for Brady, and we need to get him now. This is the last time Tom coming. We gotta get it one time. I'm just messing around, but yeah, I say they go.
Well, we'll start the 4-week slog for the Steelers. We'll have Greg Thompson on tomorrow to talk Steelers versus Bills. That podcast is scheduled for 9 p.m., so be sure to check that out. We will remind you, of course, about that one because we all know you have burning questions about Steelers versus Bills in general. And we're excited to have Greg back on it for another podcast with us.
Yeah, third time.
I wasn't even on it the last time. I just did it without me.
Yeah, that was. I remember it was week 1 last year, so I don't. It might have been. I don't know what time we did it, but yeah, it was the third time.
It was week 1. It was the last podcast without Brandon before we officially became the 3-man trio.
Yeah, third time, third straight year, the Steelers are playing the Bills all in Buffalo too. So it's always good to have Greg on.
Actually,
no, they played
4 straight. 4 straight. One was in Buffalo. Was 2019.
Oh no, yeah, 4 straight. But
I think too.
Third straight.
It was. Hold up, yeah.
It was in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, third straight in Buffalo. I mean.
Yep. Regardless, we're excited to have Greg on because it's always great to have Bills Mafia on the podcast, and we're excited to talk to you then. Until then, that's Brandon Walker of the new Pittsburgh Courier, and that's Chris Ward. I'm Ty Polk. Thank you for tuning in to the Renegade Blitz.
Thank you for listening to the Renegade Blitz podcast. Follow us on Twitter at Renegade Blitz, at @RBlitzPod, and at Blitz Videos. Read articles on RenegadeBlitz.com. Like us on Facebook and subscribe to our podcast on your favorite podcast app. The Renegade Blitz podcast is available on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, YouTube, Spotify, and wherever else you can listen to podcasts.